If as a child, your consent is constantly violated, your boundaries are constantly crossed, that is something you're always going to do. And hopefully you can unlearn that. But why should you have had to have gone through that trauma in the first place when we could have done it in a much softer, easier way by respecting the child when the child says they don't want to do something?
What's your carnal theory?
Consent is enthusiastic consent is sexy and desirable. So I think the best way I can talk with regard to enthusiastic consent is that hell yes, that really in the body, really everything about your yes is like juicy and interesting and engaged and curious and excited, and not this yeah, okay, that we often like settle for, because actually there's a lot of either a no that we're not comfortable giving, or there's a lot of maybes or conditions that come with that maybe or that no, instead of being like, actually no thank you, it sounds like a fun thing but right now it doesn't fit for me, doesn't feel comfortable for a lot of people. I think definitely non-verbal enthusiastic consent exists. However, it can be a little bit more problematic because what you're saying yes to, right, is not as clear. So I think what you need before you can give it in a non-verbal way is to have had a conversation with the other person in the first place, to be able to then like understand, okay, my consent is going to be in this form and that's what we've agreed and this is what it looks like. And then from there, yeah, of course. But I think what happens is often, especially when we're talking about sexuality related topics, we don't like to have conversations because we think that's going to take something away from the experience. Mm-hmm. Our impression is that if we talk about it, it makes it less interesting. It's going to be less engaging if people know about it. Like it's got to somehow be secret. And I'm like, yeah, no. Let's not make it secret. Let's really talk about it. Let's engage with it. Let's really understand what it is that is interesting to us, that's really there, you know, as opposed to guessing and trying to figure out and feeling really bad when it doesn't work because it doesn't meet your expectation because you had an expectation. Yeah, no. Let's not do that. Let's really genuinely engage in the conversation about what is interesting to us, you know, regardless of what the conversation is.
Yeah, I'm going to make an assumption and say that we're on the same page with this, but tell me if you don't. I would say that people, well, first off, people don't ask for consent because we're not taught to ask for consent. And then all the points that you just mentioned, I think, like underline why and when even people who know that like consent is really important and maybe they even look for it, it's like this, like, oh shit, but if I do it, then like maybe I won't look masculine enough or feminine enough or whatever the hell enough that they think they're supposed to.
Yeah.
Are there, do you have some tools or like conversation starter of like, here's a way to approach the conversation that like either still makes it sexy or still makes it like take some of the pressure off? Maybe
I think first of all we need to all understand that we're human and that we have different ideas. When we go from a more kind of grounded basis of what we want to do, right, you want to engage with another person. That's the reality of all of this, and engagement can be done in so many different ways, right? So you know, you want to kiss someone, right? You can lean in and try, right? Which is what we've all been taught. That's like the tradition. Or you lean in and then see if the person reciprocates. It's just like, no, that's not really like the way to go for me personally. I feel that's a very old school way to go that is coming from a place of fear. It's coming from a place of rejection, of thinking, oh, if I don't like just do it, you know, something else gonna. It's like, okay, let's not do that. Let's actually engage in a conversation and find out if somebody likes to kiss. So you can just ask the question, is kissing your thing, right? That way, you've already established if somebody's into that, you know, or actually, maybe not so much right now, too soon. I'd hug you if you would accept my hug. So I think it's also about coming from a place of what kind of dialogue do you want to get into? What kind of back and forth do you want to get into with a person, you know, and how much you respect their opinion, you know, where they're coming from. Boundaries, consent, negotiation is like such a huge topic, and in there we've given like our body of knowledge as far as we have it right now. It's evolving, it's still a journey, it's still one I'm on and working my way through. But yeah, it's really about giving yourself a voice also. It's like empowering everyone to recognize, oh, you do have a choice. You can make a decision and you can say yes to something and then realize, actually, no, that isn't going to work for me right now. You can say no to something and be respectful about that. And the other person, what you hope is the other person will give you a thank you, because that gives them space to do something else, you know? And it's you respecting your boundaries then, which I think is something, like you said, we're not taught. We're not taught consent. We're not taught about our boundaries. We're not taught about how to question and be curious about something. You know,
and
we
accept
just assume.
A no.
Yeah, and accept a no. Everybody thinks a no is rejection, that it's a personal attack on somebody. And I definitely want to offer and say, actually, a no is just somebody really respecting their boundary, right? Being respectful to themselves and respectful to you. Because if they cross their boundary, there's potential for resentment and falling out and conflict. It's just like, just accept a no for a no. You know, then you can move on and do something else with somebody who would give you a yes, an enthusiastic one, you know, a juicy, really into, want that. And it makes a very big difference also to body chemistry. This is something that we've learned, is that when you say yes to something, your body behaves differently. When you genuinely want to do it with all of your being, your body chemistry gives over in a completely different way to something that you're not really fully consenting to. The reality is children already know how to do this. We teach them not to. And that makes me really sad, because we don't listen to them. They know. They're already super clear about it. They already know their boundaries. But as adults, we cross that. Like, we don't pay attention to what they're saying. We don't listen to what they're saying. You know, children can be seen and not heard. This is something that still continues to perpetuate in our society today. And we put them in schools and the same thing continues to happen to them. So they don't do it. They don't do it, you know? So it's something that really, from, like you said, from a foundational place, from the ground up, you know, from where you're being taught these ways of behavior, is what you'll continue to do, right? So if as a child, your consent is constantly violated, your boundaries are constantly crossed, that is something you're always going to do. And hopefully you can unlearn that. But why should you have had to have gone through that trauma in the first place, when we could have done it in a much softer, easier way, by respecting the child when the child says they don't want to do something, right? And or finding better ways to communicate with a child.
Yeah.
You know, children are majorly intelligent. I've got two friends who have the most adorable boys, and they know stuff. Like, they just inherently know stuff. Yes, they need the boundaries. They need that kind of safer space to be able to explore, but they already know things, right? So if our education really considered that each of us has inherent knowledge, and what we need is supporting in how we work through that as we grow and develop, it would be so much nicer for all of us.